Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sew Together Tuesday. I'm Teresa Coates. I'm the National Educator for Shannon Fabrics, and today we're going to be talking about applique with Cuddle. If you're a quilter, you have probably done applique at some point, and you're familiar with needle turn applique, but that is not what we are doing today. And if you've done raw edge with cotton, you know that it frays along the edges, and that's sort of the look that we're going for when we do that. But when we work with Cuddle, because it's a knit fabric, it doesn't fray along those edges, and so we do raw edge applique all the time, and it turns out really beautiful. So I have a few projects today that I want to show you. We're going to work through a couple little steps of them, and I'm going to show you a whole lot of stitching information. For me, that was the part that I had to conquer, is to figure out how to get it to stitch down and look nice. So we're going to talk about that and also how we prep it. Okay, so let me show you a couple little things just to get you inspired on what we can do. So this is a cute little guy that we have. This is one of our free patterns. He is the monster face pillow, and you can find him on our website. So there's a free pattern for that on the website, shannonfabrics.com, okay? We also have a tip sheet there. So if I'm saying stuff and you don't quite get it all and you want a tip sheet to follow along with, you can go to our website and download it, and it's Cuddle Applique is the tip sheet for that. Okay, so this is a free pattern. You're welcome to get it after we learn some basics on working with the Cuddle. For applique, this is another one that was done, and this one is done with the Applique quilt, the die cutters, and we'll talk about that too. So you can do it either way. You can do like more traditional applique, or you can do it with the dies. It's one of the bigger questions that I get about doing applique is, can you use the dies? And you absolutely can, all right? So let's talk about the tools that we're gonna use today, and we'll go from there. So I've got a couple of dies here. This is the one that I used for the sample that I'm going to show all the stitches on. I also use the little airplane one that's on the pillow. So you're going to need a die and then your little protector plastic thing that goes over it with your die cutter. I have the Go Baby, and I have a larger Go as well, and I really love working with them with Cuddle. So I've got the clover pins, of course. I've got a walking foot. You're going to want your stretch needles, which I didn't put out here. I'm working with Metler thread today, which I really like. I used a bright thread so you could see it. I got my Famore scissors, my OD 505 spray, my stiletto, which is always important, and I have a couple of different fusibles. You can also use soft fuse. We have the Clover Wonder Fuse and Quilter Select Applique Plus, and you're going to want to get the Plus. What you want is a paper-backed double-sided fusible. I really prefer, this is my favorite just because it's a little bit lighter weight. The webbing is a little thinner, which keeps it nice and soft, okay? So we're going to start with these tools. We're going to work together, and I'm going to make a little pillow that I sort of designed very haphazardly. Just sort of threw something together because I want to show you guys how it works, okay? So let me show you what I've got. All right, so let me move this stuff, and I will show you what I made. All right, so this is basically a little pillow front that I designed. It's really just the little airplane applique and a little cloud that I drew. No big deal, and then obviously a square. Okay, so I wanted to show you a few different things with this. And so we're going to work through the different parts of it. Basically what I did is I cut a 20-inch square, I believe it is, and then a 9-inch square, and I appliqued those on first. So what I like to do is I like to put my back on, and I just use the polyester, the Quilter's Dream Poly that I like so much. I use that on the back. You can also use the stabilizer or nothing, and I'll show you that a little bit later, okay? And you can see my stitches go all the way through. All right, so what I've done is I sort of just laid out my idea of what I wanted, and then I went from there. All right, so what I have for you that we're going to work through, so this is what we want to make in the end, but we're going to start with this. All right, so I've got my die. All right, so this one I'm going to be working with the airplane. What you need to do is you need to fuse your double-sided fusible onto the back of your piece of Cuddle. Okay, a lot of times I get questions about can you iron it, and you absolutely can. So you can just take it to your iron, use the synthetic setting, okay, so it'll be a little bit lower heat, and sometimes I have to let it sit for a little bit longer than it says. So like I think on the Applique web it says 3 seconds, 4 seconds, something like that. And I let it sit for a little bit longer to make sure that it fuses. Then whenever you're doing that, make sure that you let it cool all the way before you take any of the backing fabric off, okay? I like to fuse it all on there on the bigger piece, then I'm going to die cut it, and then I'll take the backing off, okay? That's the way that I like to do it, and I find that the easiest. The paper gives it a little bit of extra stability as it's going through the die cutter, which I appreciate. So let me show you how I do that. So I always put it so that it's right side up, okay, so that my cuddle is facing up. Because what I've found is that when I stick it through and the cuddle is facing down, then more of the nap will end up in the, let's see if I can get this on here so you guys can see. You'll end up getting with the nap into your die, which is not what you want. You don't want those little bits of cuddle dust in there. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure that this fits over the piece that I want to cut. I'm stick my little plastic guy on here to hold it down. Feed that in. I'll hold it together as I get it started, and then just push it through. Oops. Okay, and then I can pull it out, and there I've got my little airplane. Okay, so now it's all ready for me. Okay, cut out, super nice and simple. What I like to do then, and you can see there's not a lot that gets in there. I just kind of wipe it up, make sure that it gets out. They have a little tool, little pick, basically, that you can use if that gets stuck in there too much, and just pull it out, okay? All right, but once I've got this guy, once he's been cut, he's got a bunch of stuff falling off the edges. So I just kind of pull that off as much as I can. Okay, and then I'll throw that away so that I'm not dealing with all of this cuddle dust coming off while I'm sewing it. I want to try to get rid of all of that. And you can see it's actually pretty easy, and then it's nice and clean and easy to work with. All right, clean up my mess. Ta-da, right onto the floor. All right, so now I have my little airplane. Okay, so at this point I can fuse it onto whatever it is I'm going to do. And I can use the regular heat iron. When I use the double-sided fusible, I like to iron these onto cotton. So I'm going to show you how that works as well. But you can do it. So we're going to do one of these with cotton in the middle and one with the cuddle. All right, so let's go over to the ironing board. Okay, so I've got my piece of cuddle that I want. Make sure my nap is going the right direction, and then I want to put my airplane on here. And I've took the paper off the backing. I'm going to find the placement for it. Okay, and then I'm going to use parchment paper. Put over here, and then I would press this. Okay, I'm going to hold it and hold it. I'm going to do this a couple of times just to get it to adhere really well. I'm not going to try to do that because I don't actually want it to adhere really well today, because I want to show you. You can do this on cotton as well. Okay, so on cotton, pull that off. I can stick it on here wherever I want it to be. I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to press it just as well. Okay. And once I get it to stick, what I can do with the cotton is I can turn it over and press from the other side. So then I just hold this on, turn it over, then I press from the other side. That way I can really hold it on, and I'm not going to have to worry about the cuddle doing anything. I've never had any problem with it like melting or getting weird or anything, but there's always like a worry that it could because it is a polyester. Okay, so you're going to see it sticks really nicely to the cotton with that. When I'm working with cuddle, most of the time I'll use the 505 spray. You can see the rest of the cuddle dust is going to come right off. All right, so let me show you with the other way. All right, so I can also take my pattern and just trace it here. Oops, magnet's sticking together. And I'm just going to trace around this pattern and then cut it out with my little scissors. All right. All right, and then I'm just going to use my little Fomori scissors that I had, and I'm just going to cut around this. Okay. So this one takes a little bit longer in getting it cut out, but I do like the way this adheres. So there's the two different ways. Obviously, you can put your paper on there and do it that way. I find it easiest, even if I decide to go back and use the 505 spray, I find it easiest to put the paper backing on there and then run it through the die cutter. That's just a personal preference, because you don't have to have the paper backing on it to run it through the die. Just so you know, you can totally use your Applique quilt machine just fine without any paper on the backing. I just find that it makes it a little more stable for me to cut it. I don't have to fight the fabric at all. Okay, so I'm just going to trim all the way around this. Okay, and I'm going to grab my piece of Cuddle. I'm going to show you how I get this on there. Okay, give this a good shake. Get rid of the Cuddle dust. All right, so here is my piece of Cuddle. I'm going to find which way the nap is going. Okay, so here's top to bottom. I want to put my little cloud on here. Okay, I'm going to decide where I want my cloud. I'm going to say I want him around there because that's pretty cute. And now I'm going to take this over to the side and I'm going to spray the back of that cloud. Okay, let me see if I can get this so you can see both. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'll hide that under there for now. I'm just going to move this over here and I'm going to spray this with my 505 spray. Okay, like I said, I use this most of the time when I'm doing Cuddle to Cuddle applique. All right, I find that it sticks better than the others. And it gives me a little bit more flexibility, and then I could put it down, see if I like it. No, I don't. I can move it again. And I can keep kind of moving it around until I find my little happy place. Okay, so I'm going to say that's it. Give it a pat, make sure it's nice and connected. All right, and then I can take it to the sewing machine and sew it. All right, so once we've gotten these adhered, there's a couple of different ways that we can attack them. Basically, with the sewing machine, we need to get them actually to stick to the fabric. So let me show you a couple things. All right, so I'm gonna move this. So what I did when I sewed on this guy, if I can find it, it's the wrong one, sorry. This guy. So when I sewed this one on, I want to tell you a couple things about it before we talk too much about stitches. Okay, so this one this was actually my top that I did. Okay, so this was the top, and I started this and I didn't check my stitches first, and I stitched this one and I didn't like how small it was, so I changed it. So it's one of the things, to make sure that you've checked it first. This blue I put on with the 505 spray, and I wanted to see if it would stick well enough while I did the stitching, or if my foot would shove it at all as I was sewing. And as you can see, there's a little bit of extra in here. There's some little lines where it got pulled a little bit here. So what I would suggest is that when you're sewing, you pin it, because what happens is that this side has stretch and this side does not. Okay, so remember with the fabric, we talked about this a while ago, is that widthwise it stretches and lengthwise it doesn't. Okay, so this way it's not going to move on me as I'm stitching that side, but as I'm stitching this side, my foot's going to want to shove it and stretch it. So we need to make sure and pin those really well. Okay, and this one you can see from the back that I did a big zigzag because it's going to hide in this fabric. So these ones, and here I did a blanket stitch, and I did that because I want those stitches to show, because I think they're cute. But in the Luxe Cuddle, in this Rose Cuddle, you're never going to be able to see those stitches. It's just going to hide in there. So for me, taking the extra time to do the blanket stitch seemed silly and kind of a waste of time. So I just did a zigzag on those. Okay. So let me show you some other stitches that I did to show you how it works. And like I said, this one I had done with the backing on it. Okay, so here's one. Let me see if I can get this over. I tried to label this for you so it would help out. Okay. So what I've got here is I just cut out some of these orange peels with the Applique quilt die and put them on, and then I put them on in different fashions. Okay, so I have a baby lock crescendo, and I used that for half of it, and then I used my Bernina, and it's a 535. Okay, so I used that one for the other stitches, and I did a whole bunch of different things that I could show you because I wanted to show you how it works differently, and between the machines they're going to work a little differently. So I did a zigzag into 3.5 on both machines. You can see I think it's interesting that it hides more. The Bernina one, it hid more with the little one than this. You can see the stitches a lot more, whereas when I did it at a 5, it hid it a lot more with the Baby Lock and not with the Bernina. So it depends on how much you want the stitches to show. This one I did it in green and these are in red, so you could see them a little bit better. Okay, this one is just a blanket stitch that I did in a 3.5 and a 5. And this is the same as on the Bernina with a 5 and a 3.5 in the blanket stitch. So really depending on what you're doing, you're going to want to use a different stitch. On these are a little bit stiffer looking. Maybe that's not quite the right word. I put these pins in there so I would remember. These are the ones that have the double-sided fusible on the back, the Quilters Select Applique Plus, and these have just the 505 spray on it. Okay, you'll notice that it stayed really nice and flat, and I'm really happy with that, and that's because I used a stabilizer on the back. So this is from Sulky. This is their tearaway stabilizer, and I fused that onto the back with the 505 spray, sprayed it on there first, and then did all of the stitching. Okay, so that worked really well. I'm really happy with how it worked. I really like the big fat stitches. You can see I got off a little bit there, but most times you can get it to run right along the edge of your foot. It works really well, and it's a beautiful little finish on the edge, and you can't tell that it's the edge of it. It looks like it's been finished somehow, and it hasn't. So then I also did, so remember, this is the one with the tearaway stabilizer. Okay, and then this is the one, whoops, this is the one that I did that has nothing on the back and batting on the back. Okay, my things moved. Okay, and I seem to have lost 2 of them. Where did they go? Hold on half a second, let me grab those. All right, so then we have straight stitches and zigzags. Okay, so this half of it, these 2 here are done with the batting behind it. These 2 are done with nothing behind it. All right, and really what I want you to see is how important that the batting or some sort of a stabilizer is. You can see that it got a little bit warped, I guess is the right word for it, stretched, it moved. It's not laying nice and flat anymore, even though I pinned it really well and I used the 505 spray on all of these. It still likes to kind of move its way through the machine, and so using a stabilizer behind it, whether it's a tearaway or a batting, works really well. Okay, that's what we did with the monster face pillow when I made that. Okay, this is my little version of that monster face, and I used the batting on the back of that. Okay, and it makes it a little bit more stable and keeps everything nice and flat. Okay, so this is done with the blanket stitch and a zigzag. Okay, same. I put this one in here because I just really want to show you guys the glitter stuff. It's so pretty and weirdly super duper soft. You can't even feel the glitter in there. It's wonderful. So it's sparkle glitter stuff. Cuddle. I think it's called glitter cuddle sparkle cuddle glitter. Pretty sure that's the name of it. So you'll have to look for it in your shop. This is the saltwater version, and I think it's so pretty, and the sparkles are just magical. So this is done with a zigzag and a blanket stitch. I can't really tell which one makes it worse. Maybe the blanket stitch does with the stretch. So you could do it, but I really suggest using just a stabilizer of some sort. This is done with the blanket stitch and a zigzag on the Bernina with the batting behind it, which works out great. You can see how nice and flat, if I move these, you can see how nice and flat this has stayed, which is what we want, okay? There's no weird little lumps over here. This is the straight stitch. So this I did it at a 4 stitch length. This one I did it at a 3 stitch length. So this one is a little bit tighter and it hides in there more. You can barely see that there's red stitching here, but I promise it really is there. Some patterns will suggest that you just do a straight stitch, and I always suggest that you do a zigzag. One of the reasons is this lays so much flatter and into the background fabric. But the other thing is that you can still see this edge of cuddle when it's the straight stitch. Yeah, and that fuzz bit that's happening there is just not my favorite. And so really it's a personal choice, and I have a harder time getting this line to be perfectly straight along the edge than I do just getting the zigzag to lay it down nice and flat. Okay, so you can totally do it with a straight stitch if you want to. It is really fast, but I feel like you get a nicer finish this way. So I recommend using a zigzag or a blanket stitch. I like the larger one, so these are a 3.5. You saw the 5.0. Let me show you those again. Okay, so that would be like this blanket stitch. I really like that one, and we use that on the edges of like self-binding blankets. You can do that, and all sorts of applique just in general. Okay, either one that you like is great, whatever your machine will do. Try out the different sizes. So go to your machine, do something like I've done here where you just have a few different pieces, put some different backings behind it, and use different threads so you can really see how those stitches work and which works best with your machine. As you can see, the two machines work differently, as you'll get different results. I would do the zigzag on my Bernina, and I would do the blanket stitch on my Crescendo. So I feel like the results with either one of them is a little bit better. So your machine may be totally different and does a better small zigzag than mine does. So give it a shot, try it, and try it with the tearaway stabilizer and with the batting. But remember that backing is really important to get a nice finish. Okay, it makes a big difference in how your final project looks and how professional it looks. So I really love applique. Let me show you a little bit more details on a couple of these pillows, and if you have any questions, please comment below and I'll answer when I'm done here. Okay, so this one I wanted to show you. This one is done with the blanket stitch here. Okay, and it's just done in red all the way around. This here is just the cuddle stuck in there that can just be brought right back up and get rid of that little edge there. Okay, so that's important with the applique as well. You can see that looks much smoother there. So that's all they did, is just a blanket stitch right around here, blanket stitch all of this down. This is just done with the dye from AccuQuilt. Super cute, came out a few years ago, and there's the couple of airplanes, so the other airplane that I did and then this one. And this is the same sort of cloud that's been just zigzagged on as well. Okay, so it's same idea. This is with an embossed cuddle, which makes an adorable little background. Super easy and doesn't make any difference. So you can use all sorts of things for the background. McKay Manor Musers makes some patterns. This is one of them. So this is the jelly bean faces pattern that she makes that's super cute, and which uses a lot of applique, which is another great one to do. She does a couple that are like quilts that have cuddle appliques on them that you make like a cotton quilt, and you do these cuddle appliques on top, which are really cute. So there's lots of different patterns you can use. Funky Friends has some patterns. My little monster that's up there, I don't know if you can see my monster very well. This one has some applique on it, the little heart, and his little eyes are applique. Super duper easy. Okay, so there's lots of patterns that use applique, and anything that uses applique and uses cotton, you can totally do it with Cuddle, as long as it's not a needle turn, because we wouldn't ever want to do that with the Cuddle. But a raw edge applique will totally work. So anything that you have, patterns that you have, coloring books, all of that sort of stuff, it's all usable as applique. So the possibilities are kind of endless with this, and I hope that you'll take the opportunity to try some out. We have a few patterns on our website. There's a sailboat pillow, the monster face, and we have a few kits. So if you have bought an amused kit or the bear claw, we have some appliques in those, and so this should give you some good tips on working with those as well. We've got lots of other patterns to use, so head to our website. You can download them there. You can download our tip sheets, and don't forget to sign up for our newsletter and get more information on upcoming events, classes, and our more tutorial videos that we'll be doing. So thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate you visiting with us every week and watching along. If you have any questions, leave them below and I'll get back to you. And we'll see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye-bye. Thanks to all of our vendor sponsors for all of the great products that they make that make working with Cuddle, Luxe Cuddle, and Embrace easy.